This is Jeff Scott. In response to a email request, I'm going to do a brief video on how I create and utilize the group inclusion report feature within HGSI. This is 3/15/2015, and this is a follow-up to the video that I made earlier today. The purpose of the group inclusion report is to reduce some of the time that I might take in doing my analysis. For example, if I believe I have a number of lists that contain great stocks, then it's possible that a stock that makes it to a large number of those lists might be a stock that's worth looking at. And so if you think back to what I did earlier today, and I started with my group performance analysis, I showed that there were a lot of groups that outperformed the market. Now, what if I could take a list of each stock in these groups and find out which stocks show up in the highest number of groups? So here's how I do that. I open up HGSI and it's fully updated. I go into my designer. Now, you should remember that in the designer, you have three main headings. Reference groups, which are things that are done for you and are nothing that you can adjust, but include the components of major indexes, ETFs, etc. Industry groups and sectors. Smart groups, which are standardized views, meaning filters and ranking modules that many of us have created that help us to shorten our work by identifying for us some of the most attractive instruments in the market. And then user groups, which might include a number of the groups that I may have created on my own. So I really do two different group inclusion reports. The first group inclusion report I do is sort of my standard nightly review of what made it to the majority of the smart groups. I click on Tools, I go into Group Inclusion Report, and in a second it will open up, and I start by saying make a group from report. I created a directory that includes my group inclusion reports, but for this one I'm just going to leave it in my user group parent, and I'm going to call the directories a test GIF 3.15 base smart groups. You can call it whatever you want. I only want stocks that are in at least, say, 5 of the smart group or 4 of the smart groups. That's the number I usually use. I won't play games tonight. And I want to find 30 stocks. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hit clear and wait till that that check goes away so I know I'm starting from scratch. So this is the base one that I'm going to run every night and every week. So I'm going to start by going into the reference groups, and I'm going to check off industries. So I know there's 170 or so industries in HGSI, and I'm not going to separate any stocks based upon industry group, but it's going to tell me what each one is in. Then I'm going to identify my favorite smart groups. And the Morales and Catcher, I go for Bible gap ups, I go for Code Blue, and I go for pocket pivots 5 or 10 days. Under my name, I go for 3x big in volume. I could go for 3x or 5x, but not both because that'd be repeating. Breakouts from a squeeze. Pullbacks to the 50 with a kahuna. And then one of my favorites is squeezing stocks, potential PSAR reversal to the upside. Then I go into the best of Ian and Ron, and I want a bunch of these. I want best criteria. I want best of under 15, consisting earnings, demand, ERG 240, growth, HGS 100, high profit margins, leaders, LLUR, quarterly EPS, shadow stocks, and then careful to pick the stocks and groups to the upside and strong EPS All right. Then I go up to Ghilardi, and I want sprinters. And for Steckler, I want to get his PZO bullish and VZO bullish. So once again, I've identified lists of bullish smart groups. These are done automatically every night. And now I'm going to come over here and I'm going to save my selection as I'm going to call it Best Smart Groups for GIF 3.15.2015. I'm going to save that. And now I'm going to just hit OK. It's going to ask me to name it in a second. We'll call it GIF Web Demo 3.15 Best of Smart Groups. Generate index for the group? Nope. Doesn't really matter actually. And here, these will be the stocks that made it to my list. Now, I could scale down this list and I could look at each stock, how many groups it was in. The first tells me what industry it's in, specialty pharma, and then which smart groups were positive. And we looked at almost all of these tonight in my smart group analysis. Now, the other thing that happens is that I ask for a user group, and this is my user group. I'm just going to put a filter in that says no indexes. So these are the stocks that are put into a user group, and then I could hit my warehouse key, and that'll open up a warehouse with this user group in it. And I could do whatever scans or things that I might want to do with this list, trying to rank the stocks and identify them. So again, what I did is I went under Tools, Group Inclusion Report, and now if I did this again, since I created the list, give it a chance to open up here. I hit clear, so they all come back. All I have to do is load selection, and now whenever I come in, I can just hit on my smart groups for GIF, and it will check all those off, and it will save me some time. So since these smart groups, they change in name, but not only on they don't change in name, but they change in date. The program's been set up, so it really doesn't matter what the date is, they'll identify them. Now let's do another GIF. Let's look at my user list that I put together today. Let's look at all the bullish ones and see if I can do a group inclusion report for that. Tools, Group Inclusion Report. We're going to hit clear in a second when it pops up. I have a few things open, which is the problem here. Come on. All right. So I'm going to clear it. And I'm going to make a group here. We're going to call this AAA GIF Best of Jeff Groups 3.15.2015. Now we're going to look at some of my groups as I do this. So I love that industry thing, so I always leave that industry thing in. So I'm going to put that industry group in. Now I'm going to close that off. I'm not going to use the smart groups. I'm going to open up, and I'm going to look at some of my groups. So some of these are overlap. The Bible gap ups, the pocket pivots, the 5 times volume, squeezing, potential PSR reversal, best of Woodward. Okay. These are from MarketSmith, accumulating stocks. Advancing accumulating stocks, at or new highs. Big O are some filters that try and find stocks that are like the IBD 50. The second one is a DI crossover. Blog game plan filters, an old thing that somebody once posted that's been useful for me to find great stocks. Breakouts. Delta ERG is another filter that was created years ago that I used to find great stocks. Fast growing 150. Fundamental strength, which is from MarketSmith. The GIF All-Stars, which is what this list will be. HGS 100. Ian point scores. IBD 50, obviously I'm getting these from the IBD. I look at MarketSmith. I look at markets with accelerating leaders. I run some bullish scans in Metastock. And I just want the bullish ones. MarketSmith near pivots. Another bullish stock scan from Metastock. These are screens of the day from investors.com. A lot of these, let's say top, are from MarketSmith or Investors Business Daily. Some of these are scans like these couple from HGSI. And then I come down here, and these are what I found on TradeStation: Bible gap ups, green candle lows, Mobo breakout in a squeeze, Mobo breakout, high close dojis, which is a person indicator, person long weekend stocks, flip to positive, and then some of my strongly positive groups. And now I'm going to hit OK. I did not save that as a list because it's going to change every week. And now I'm going to call this GIF Scott Leaders 315 from lists. Save. Now it's running. I don't need an index of this, so I'll hit no. And in a second, it'll pop up a new report. I guess this is a new report. And you can see the leaders here, which may be different because I'm using different links, different scans, Amrel, Lanet, Centene. So what I basically have shown you is a tool that allows me to quickly run through a number of lists and identify great stocks. So let's now take those stocks, put it into a warehouse view, and now we're going to, I want them all, so I'm just going to go scorecard index 250 and 500. And I'm going to very quickly run through these. Most of these I've already looked at this evening, and just show you what kind of stocks that came up on that quick evaluation. In fact, you could argue all I got to do is this. I don't need to do anything else. Freescale we looked at earlier. Leader, small pullback, flag, broke out on Friday. Rising volume, great earnings. Something going on in M&A, I'd want to check on that on this. Mallinckrodt, the Quest score, lower left, upper right. NXP Semiconductor, they're doing an acquisition, and they broke out on Friday. Good earnings, had this Bible gap up, certainly a leader, looks great, nice earnings. Sucampo Pharmaceuticals, don't know much about them except they're starting to have revenue and earnings. High multiple, but very high earnings per share growth rate. This is a case where their earnings will catch up to their multiple. Ambarella, the GoPro chip maker who sells to others and is not limited by GoPro, which is why they look like this and GoPro looks like the reverse. United Therapeutics, they've got a number of drugs, I think cystic fibrosis, pulmonary fibrosis, nice moving chart, Don't know much else about the company. Not great earnings per share growth, but lower left, upper right. Centene, I talked about this on my webinar earlier tonight. This is a leader in managed care. You have a lot of government contracts, great earnings per share growth for a managed care company, lower left, upper right, and tight. Talked about this for 2 years. Valiant, the serial acquirer, sort of digesting now whether they're going to get Salix, which is why they sold off when there was a second bid that came in. They've already started getting shares, so that may be too late for Endo to steal. Pinnacle Entertainment, we also talked about this earlier today, broke out earlier this week. A regional, a gaming stock, and doesn't have great earnings per share growth. Last earnings were here, 12/14. Not sure what happened. It's probably news driven. Skyworks, lower left, upper right, tight, great stock, part of the Apple component pipeline. Great stock, certainly a leader, great earnings per share growth, much more than PE. Newlink Genetics, talked about this earlier this eve, biotech stock. It's got an Ebola play. This one's been talked about a lot as a potential acquisition. Biogen, one of the grandfathers in not only biotech but in orphan drugs. A little bit of a pullback here, had a pocket pivot on Friday, might be setting up to go again. Lanet Company, again talked about this. This is my ATM stock because I keep taking money out because of this stock. It's run up here, high base forming, tried to break out on Friday. It's profiled at investors.com on Saturday. I'm not sure if that'll be a good thing or a bad thing. High base, yes, a failed breakout with a failed new high and a red candle high, but it only closed down 7.17% or 11 cents. I'm going to watch that one for a breakout on Monday. AmerisourceBergen, I talked about Amerisource, Cardinal McKesson earlier this evening. I call them the toll highways of healthcare. If you want to sell a drug, sell a device, and if your customer is a doctor's office, a retail pharmacy, a specialty pharmacy, or a hospital, then you go through one of those three big distributors, 90 to 95% of the material. They have very tight, low margins, but they have no technology risk, and they're cash printing machines, and all three have the same chart, which is a tight lower left, upper right. This is Amerisource. If Obamacare gets overturned, these things are at big risk. They win by increasing volume. Jazz Pharmaceuticals, that's been a favorite for a long time. Going sideways, tried to break out on Friday, came back with a sell-off. It's got the PSAR overhead. This is one of those stocks that I look at as a potential fly and buy stock where I can set a buy stop above the PSAR, my stop at the 50, and get on a plane and not worry too much, because if the market trades up, I get filled. If the market opens up big down tomorrow, nothing happens. Activist is a generic serial acquirer, a lot like Valiant. Recently bought Allergan, lower left, upper right. Certainly has been a big leader we've talked about for ages. Avigo, another technology semiconductor stock, in a small pullback here. Certainly lower left, upper right up to that time. Kroger's grocery store, looks like a technology stock, lower left, upper right, tight, had a pullback here and then a Bible gap up on earnings. Earnings per share growth about half of the PE, so it's probably fully priced and probably grows 10 to 12% from here in conjunction with what the earnings growth, but certainly has been a big leader. VIPS Holdings, this is a Chinese retailer, sold off on Friday. It still had a nice move from the 50-day moving average. It makes money, has good earnings. Cognex, another technology play, electronic equipment. Don't know much about this guy. It's trading in the upper right-hand corner. It's too loose for me. I would probably have skipped this quickly. And Cambrex, another biotech stock that this one actually makes money. Earnings starting to come in. The specialty pharma, not biotech, had a Bible gap up here and has continued to go up. Earnings per share exceeding PE. Don't know much else about it. 1-800-Flowers.com, and a nice run after acquiring Harry and David. Alta had earnings on Friday, lower left, upper right. The point here is I'm not trying to find stocks for you to buy because I have no idea when you're going to watch this. This is not a weekend review. It's in a supplement. The key point is each of these stocks are lower left, upper right. These are great stocks. Methode, it's upper right and lower left, but it's a mess to get there. Not one I would look at. Qualies, in the Apple infrastructure software like PanWest and others, sold off like VDSI did, like Cyber, like FireEye did. We'll see if it can hold above the 50 and bounce. It does have good earnings per share growth, but a big PE. Western Alliance Bancorp regional banks are starting to look good. This is one of the leaders. It makes money, doesn't pay a dividend, and is trading at a multi-month high. O'Reilly Automotive, a auto parts retailer, has been a good stock for years. Lower left, upper right, a little loose in here. Maybe it's going to tighten up and run again. Sherwin-Williams, the paint store, one of these days it's going to roll over. But this is a stock that's really been on fire with splits and everything going back since this market started going up. Here's 12/11. And so from December of 11, I'll go from September 11, it's up 291% in 4 years. How many of your stocks, or 3.5 years, are up that much? What a great stock. It'll run until it stops running. It looks like it's getting toppy here. It's got the 50 close by to support, which might be support and a good place to buy. Its earnings per share are about 2/3 of what its PE. Certainly not way overpriced from that perspective. Abiomed, another healthcare stock, Bible Gap up, trading up, high multiple, high growth rate, don't know much about it. EPAM is another technology stock, nice move up, sort of setting up a wedge here underneath the PSAR dot. The point of that exercise was not to tell you which of these stocks to buy, but to show you that very quick maneuver with the group inclusion filter, group inclusion report function, which is found in the designer under tools, is a great tool for helping you find leading stocks in the market with minimal number of keystrokes. I was able to find 30 stocks, of which 20 to 25 of them would be on my buy list that I got from my exhausting 4 to 6 8-hour weekend review that I do before I publish. So on that note, I thank you as always, for watching what I do. Remember to clear before you start, unless you want to repeat the thing you just did. Make group from report, and that way it'll show up under the user groups. And I hope you find this tool to be as useful in helping you make money with HGSI as I